Welcome back, Science 7. Today we are going to start our review. This review is broken down into two different sections. Chapter 1 and 2 will be reviewed today, and then chapter 3 and 4 in the next class. And obviously, when it comes to this review booklet, it is recommended to follow this general advice. First thing first, in science, I want you to create either a review note, so your own review note, or a series of word card. And word card, you can use an index card or cue card, the one that is size of your palm or smaller than that, right? Because it is very important to connect any type of concept with other concept together or put some examples or drawing, those kind of thing. It is important. This document have a lot of checklists and following questions. However, it does not give you all of the answers. I want you to go back to the PowerPoint slides that I use for this class or the class notes and textbook to find those answers. It is guiding questions. So without further ado, since we have a lot of things to do, let's go to chapter 1. The very first lesson that we did, ladies and gentlemen, is the body of seed structure. So as you may notice, we call this angiosperms, and you need to understand about seed plant structure. I have a little typo over here, seed plant. There you go. Structure. For example, what is the main function of stem? Inside of stem, we have something called xylem and phloem. What are those roles? What are the main function of the seeds? And inside of the seeds, what is embryo or what is a cotyledon do? Those kind of thing. What's the main function of leaves? Inside of the leaves, we learn about chlorophyll. And chlorophyll was also another famous term that was used in one of those Bill Nye video. What are the chlorophyll? What are the main function of the roots? And when it comes to roots, we learn about variation of roots, tap roots, fibrous roots. What are the differences? These are the one that we started with our Unit B. Also, we learn about several plant process. One of the process that we learn is mechanism that is happening in roots. We learn about osmosis and diffusion. So it is good idea to review those part, and then like I said, create your own review notes or more useful word card. I want you to make that. If you haven't, do that right now. How do roots absorb water from soil? How does osmosis occur? Where and what type of chemical moves? How do roots absorb minerals from soil? Diffusion actually answered that a little bit, but how diffusion work? Where does it go? And where what chemical go? Is it water or any other type of chemical like minerals? Also, we learn about mechanism that is happening in stems and leaves. When it comes to stem, we learn something called capillary action. What's the mechanism? How that help bringing water from bottom parts to up part using xylem or phloem. You need to find that out also. What is transpiration? Where does it occur? You need to find that answers too. And also, not all the mechanisms are free. What is active transport? Because active transport is another way that, how can I say, transport some of the matters, chemical matters. What is the difference between active transport with osmosis or active transport with diffusion? We need to focus on those. The next part, we'll learn about photosynthesis and something called cellular respiration. Those two are completely opposite together, especially when it comes to photosynthesis. It's not new to us. But talking about photosynthesis, you need to be able to answer, where does photosynthesis occur? What is the word equation? Like, what I mean by that is, where does glucose involve? Is it on the left side or right side? Where the sunlight is not the chemical like water. Six water, where does it move? Is it on the left side or right side? Those kind of things. And what kind of chemicals required? And what chemicals are produced during the photosynthesis? Is oxygen is the one that is produced, or carbon dioxide is the one that is produced? You need to find out the answer using the learning material that we have, PowerPoint, teacher note or lesson note, and the textbook. Cellular respiration. What is the word equation for that? Again, what chemicals are required to do this reaction or what chemicals are produced during this reaction? When it comes to next up, we talk about life cycle of any type of seed plants. Angiosperm, and technically we learn a little bit about gymnosperms, the one that use the one that doesn't use flower actually. Stage of the life cycle, we learn about seed stage, seedling, and then adult with the germination happen. So it is important to find out what's happening in each stage and why it's significant. And which stage has the following, like development of reproductive organ. Is it happen in the seed, seedling, or adult plant, right? Embryo and food supply, cotyledon. What does both of these parts do? When does germination occur? When does fertilization occur? You need to know those stages. Five, we learn about this way more in detail too. You need to understand which part belong for which, and then obviously you need to, it's kind of like fill in the blank more when it comes to this section. Where does a petal occur or belong? Sepal, stamen. Stamen is a male part, whereas the anther, pollen, filament, which is one of these structure, which I'm not going to tell you the answer. I want you to figure that out. Pistil, which is female structure, stigma, style, ovary, and ovule. This is a female structure, but it is your job to figure out which part belong. And some kind of specific property too, like for example, sticky part of the pistil. You need to find that out. And why it's sticky? So that the pollen will stick there, right? Something like that. Or site of fertilization. You need to find that out also. Talking about pollens, pollination and pollinators, those are mutualism, and you need to find out some of the answer for how do angiosperms, so flowering plants, produce offspring. What are well-known pollinators? Most of them are insects, but still, and how flowers and those animals adapted differently. I want you to think about those and answer also. All right, the next stop is reproduction without using seeds, which we learn about this a little bit of a cloning situation where your offspring is exact identical as the original cell. So parents and offsprings are identical. There are four different type of reproduction without using seed in nature. We learn about runners, we learn about rhizomes, we learn about bulbs and tubers, and we learn about suckers. I want you to think about all of the definition of those and most importantly, examples. How runner and mechanism of how runners go through. Like for example, stem go to the next and then that's how they reproduce. And the runner's good example is strawberry, those kind of thing. And there are two techniques that humans use to reproduce plants, and those are grafting and cutting. And I want you to find out the definition and example, or you can draw too when it comes to these two. Like cutting is a good example. Some people cut a part of the leaves that has a flower and then plant it on the next pot, something like that. Grafting, cut one of the branches and connect with the other branches and then they connect together and grow. So you guys understand that those several differences between nature way and artificial way, you need to understand those and how those work. Adaptation of plants. The Unit B, Chapter 1 actually take a huge part of this unit. Adaptation occur very differently, especially in some roots. We'll learn about that at the very first slides. What are the examples of tap roots? Why that's so unique? Fibrous root. What are those so unique? And how some evolution leads to condition like grass roots. They are really deep. The reason they have that adaptation is so that they can prevent themselves going away, sway away by the flood. Those kind of situation. Or why do we have a waxy coating on spruce growth tree? Those kind of thing. We also have several different conditions that leads to adaptation and evolution: sunlight, water, nutrients, space. And some of these example, to be honest, all of them we went over, and I want you to go back to those, or textbook reading will be really good idea to go through this. Now our last half, chapter 2. Chapter 2 is a little bit shorter. We learn about overall roles of the plant. So you need to understand how and why plants are a great source of foods for all living matters, and how and why plants provide great amount of oxygen because of what reaction. You will know the answer. How and why plants is a good method to reduce carbon dioxide and prevent global warming. We already know how and why, using what reaction. Plants are good protector and shelter for animal. How and why. Plants protect soil. How and why. This is a little bit of a hint. Erosion. I want you to go there. Plants are known as producer. I know we learned about food web and all in first unit. How and why. Second part. What are major crops that feed 75% or world food supply? I want you to go back to this textbook will help you quite a bit. There are several like corns, barley, wheat. There are the list. And some of the crop that you think, yeah, those are the one that is involved. What are the plants that we use for produce fiber? What are the plants that we use to produce medicine? And some indigenous way, some indigenous FNMI way is consume the flowers to use it as a painkiller. Those kind of examples, I want you to explore that. The last part of the chapter 2 is managing the living source. You need to understand the definition on some of the example of what is sustainability and what kind of human impacts in forest business that limit this sustainability, or what are the human impact in agriculture business. Even though when it comes to forestry and agriculture business, these two overlap in chapter 3 and 4. So you can put something about chemical fertilizer use when it comes to agriculture, or fragmentation or clearing of the forest. You can put that in forest industry, but again, this is general part of it. I want you to put some examples and some of those why it cuts. So long story short, ladies and gentlemen, that was the review of chapter 1 and chapter 2. I will post this, how can I say, the review material on the day that I'm posting this review videos. It is more important for you to not slack off and then actually create some of those answer to these questions. Those are the ones that play such a huge role in chapter 1 and chapter 2 of unit B. And that is today's lesson.